My name's Ed Snowden. I'm 29 years old. I work for Booz Allen Hamilton as an infrastructure analyst for NSA in Hawaii.
Hey everybody, I'm Christopher Green. You're watching Green Wave TV Alternative Media Television. Edward Snowden comes forward, blows the top off of one of the largest internet spy ring surveillance programs in the history of the world. And guess what? It's your country, the United States of America, behind it. Edward Snowden, who is this guy? He breaks a story to The Guardian, says he doesn't want the story to be about himself, says he doesn't view himself as a hero, wants to focus on the internet spy ring and the fact that there's no transparency with this data mining at the NSA and the CIA. However, I find this a little strange. Why come forward then if you don't want to make it about you?
When you see everything, you see them on a more frequent basis. And you recognize that some of these things are actually abuses. And when you talk to people about them, in a place like this where this is the normal state of business, people tend not to take them very seriously and move on from them. But over time, that awareness of wrongdoing sort of builds up, and you feel compelled to talk about it. And the more you talk about it, the more you're ignored, the more you're told it's not a problem, until eventually you realize that these things need to be determined by the public, not by somebody who is simply hired by the government.
Talk a little bit about how the American surveillance state actually functions. Does it target the actions of Americans?
NSA and the intelligence community in general is focused on getting intelligence wherever it can by any means possible that it believes, on the grounds of sort of a self-certification, that they serve the national interest. Originally, we saw that focus very narrowly tailored as foreign intelligence gathered overseas. Now, increasingly, we see that it's happening domestically. And to do that, the NSA specifically targets the communications of everyone. It ingests them by default. It collects them in its system, and it filters them, and it analyzes them, and it measures them, and it stores them for periods of time, simply because that's the easiest, most efficient, and most valuable way to achieve these ends. So while they may be intending to target someone associated with a foreign government or someone that they suspect of terrorism, they're collecting your communications to do so. Any analyst at any time can target anyone, any selector, anywhere. Where those communications will be picked up depends on the range of the sensor networks and the authorities that that analyst is empowered with. Not all analysts have the ability to target everything, but I, sitting at my desk, certainly had the authorities to wiretap anyone, from you or your accountant to a federal judge to even the president if I had a personal email.
So who is Edward Snowden? Edward Snowden, a very successful guy, worked for the NSA, CIA out in Hawaii, had a girlfriend, made over $200,000 a year, a very comfortable living. What would motivate somebody to dispel the truth like he just did? He says he's a big believer of internet freedom. He's a big believer of transparency on all levels. At one time thought the internet was one of the most fantastic, unbelievable inventions in humankind. He wants to keep it that way. This is very much, and is looking very much like a WikiLeaks, Julian Assange type leak. And what's amazing is that the NSA and these groups are already calling for the disappearance of Snowden, who's holed up in a Hong Kong hotel room at this very given moment, fearing for his life. Not sure if he'll be extradited back to the United States, which I can only surmise would be a very painful process. We've seen this with the attempt on Julian Assange, whether or not he'll be scooped up and sent away to China, potentially used as an asset, which kind of just begs some questions here. Is this a traditional, in a legitimate leak? Is this a transparent, legitimate situation? Or perhaps could Snowden be working for somebody else? He was working, in fact, for the CIA and the NSA. Could they be positioning this to make an example of him? Although probably not likely, these are questions that we probably should ask. But pretty unbelievable how everybody likes to focus and demonize these given people. Demonize Snowden, demonize Julian Assange. Bradley Manning, etc., who, by the way, his trial starts this week, and we'll be covering that in detail. But they lose focus of what the issue really is. The fact that there's this draconian spy ring, this ubiquitous situation here in the United States where literally the federal government at their fingertips is wiretapping all of us, data mining all of us, reading through our emails. They know what we're searching on Google before we do. In fact, you don't even have to click the search button, and that's being logged into the federal database and being data mined for words like terrorism or assassination or President Barack Obama. I mean, this just opens up an entire can of worms, and it is completely and utterly anti-constitutional on every single level. And this is what we've been telling people for years. This is not a republic. When the federal government comes in and violates the Fourth Amendment, illegal search and seizure without a warrant, and is wiretapping every single American known to man, that everybody is a terrorist now, everybody is a supposed threat, lone wolf here in the United States, that isn't a place that we want to live. And that I commend Snowden so much for getting the word out there if he is in fact a legitimate source of this information. Also, I find very interesting that he chose to release this to The Guardian, a British newspaper, both in print and online. We've seen Greenwald, who's been on Bill Maher, many of you are familiar with him on that show, but also has been doing the circuit over the past few days as Snowden chose to leak this to Greenwald, a pretty big activist for free speech, freedom in general, and has had a very anti-front against this terror. This terror that's being spread against the American people. Again, this isn't America anymore. This is a totalitarian takeover of every liberty and freedom that we once thought we had. Now, what's also amazing to me is Snowden says that when President Barack Obama was elected in 2008, he thought that he was actually going to do what he said he was going to do. He actually thought that the president was going to stop the wiretapping that George W. Bush was doing, that he was going to put a stop to what had been passed post-September 11, 2001 with the U.S. Patriot Act.
This administration also puts forward a false choice between the liberties we cherish and the security we provide. I will provide our intelligence and law enforcement agencies with the tools they need to track and take out the terrorists without undermining our Constitution and our freedom. That means no more illegal wiretapping of American citizens. No more national security letters to spy on citizens who are not suspected of a crime. No more tracking citizens who do nothing more than protest a misguided war. No more ignoring the law when it is inconvenient. That is not who we are.
But instead, the president has done the exact opposite. He's passed the NDAA, the National Defense Authorization Act. He's bypassed Congress many times before with the invasion of Libya. And with these wiretappings, the IRS scandal, etc. And it's only gotten worse. There's been no material change. And you see, this is when you know that we have a dictator in power, because a dictator tells you what you want to hear and then does the exact opposite, which is exactly what President Barack Obama has done. So pretty incredible, pretty amazing. Here you have a programmer who had his GED, barely graduated high school, rose through the ranks rather aggressively, served in special forces overseas in the Middle East wars, became very disillusioned like many people are today, and came back and blew the cover off of one of the biggest scandals in the history of America regarding surveillance and regarding our freedoms and our basic constitutional civil liberties. I also read, and many of you probably caught this as well, that the federal government and the Pentagon is actually asking everybody overseas, all the Americans fighting in these egregious wars for blood money oil, not to read the newspapers right now, not to read anything on the IRS scandal or Benghazi or this latest leak and break on this wiretapping scandal and this gross surveillance program known as PRISM, which really is just the American prison that we live. This Google Glass totalitarian society where they know everything that we do, and that literally you think that I got a camera on me? Bullshit. You got a camera on you. You're all a part of this. We're all a part of this. We're at war. This is what a cyber war looks like. This is it. This is complete power and complete control on every level, and it's an absolute friggin' joke. Please get this story out. Help me investigate it. I'm Christopher Green. You're watching Green Wave TV, alternative media television, and I just deliver the Daily Wave. Hard-hitting and in your face. Please get this video out everywhere. Subscribe to us at YouTube at cgreen34, Facebook at Green Wave TV. Follow me at Green Wave and get it out to the viewing public. Peace.